Marvel Rivals is just fun. People like it. It's fast, it's interesting, it's cool. There's a lot of wacky things happening. And most importantly, remember how Overwatch looked at Tracer and says, yes, that ass is gotta go? Well, Marvel Rivals looked at Tracer and decided, you know what, we're gonna take that ass and put it back on everything. And that's amazing.
Marvel Rivals is a reckoning. 20 million players in under 2 weeks. That is insane. What is going on? It's light, it's fun, it's flashy, it has some of the best character designs I have ever seen in any Marvel property, period.
It doesn't actually have good character designs per se. It's just the first Marvel product in literally years that is not afraid to make women hot and likable and appealing, and men buff, strong, and also appealing. Literally, remember the days of Fat Thor? Yes. Yes, that is gone. Marvel Rivals does not subscribe to this idea of stupidity and DEI BS.
And on top of that, it has a battle pass that doesn't expire. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for this lesson that you are teaching to the industry because they need to learn it. And that's exactly what this game is doing right now, because this entire year we have heard the same line of garbage towed across the entire industry as to why live service games have been failing. It's not the character designs. The people who are talking about that are toxic. It's not that we don't understand what the players want. It's that there's too much competition in the industry right now. It's not the gameplay. It's because people just aren't, interested in hero shooters anymore. Really? Is that what it looks like to you? All of this back and forth while feigning ignorance. And we've had some incredible games this year. We've had some incredibly popular games this year. But we haven't had that game that stood as definitive proof as to what the players have been asking for a long time. We haven't had that, 20 million players in under 2 weeks kind of proof. And that's exactly what Marvel Rivals is.
Finally, I am vindicated, by the way, because I have been saying this for years. Hero shooters are not dead. How can they be dead? Overwatch is past its prime, and it still actually has like 1 million active players daily, or some incredibly BS number like that. Okay, I'm over-exaggerating it a little bit, but still, you have literally one hero shooter game of that kind out in the market, and people are, oh, no one cares about hero shooters. Are you stupid? Finally, people are seeing the light. Took me 3 years of shouting out from the rooftops in the sky like an old man waving my fist, and finally people are understanding it. There's no such thing as dead. You can't kill an idea. You can't kill Marvel Rivals, you can kill Overwatch, but you can't kill the concept of hero shooters. And the moment that concept seems fresh or done in a good way yet again, it's gonna come back. And the same is for literally everything. Diablo, Path of Exile, World of Warcraft, any game you want, it's gonna come back. Because games are just concepts, and concepts don't die.
It's a very fun game, and that's the main reason why people are playing it. It came out of left field for me. I'm actually a bit shocked to see... Actually, I'm not that shocked to see how popular the game is, because after playing it, you can see why everybody's playing it right now. But I think that this game stands as a lesson for the rest of the industry. And I think in a lot of ways, the people that were talking about live service games this year and why they were failing, they might need to go into hiding after this one. So you could use today's sponsor, Delete Me. So let's talk about...
No, not today. But yes, you know why Marvel Rivals is good? Because it's fun. It actually takes risks. And I'm not even saying it actually takes risks. It just allows people to have fun things to do. Look at Marvel Rivals. You have Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange has Symmetra's ulti that is better, more versatile, more aggressive, more jank potential as a basic skill. You know what was Overwatch's biggest problem? It's the fact that every skill has a 15-minute cooldown. It's the fact that you get your ulti and you get to play it once in a goddamn blue moon. Okay? And when you mess it up, it does nothing and it feels super bad. Marvel Rivals? Spam your abilities every 5 seconds. Who cares? Ultis, they're up every minute. Let's go, baby. That's how they do things. And you know what? People like it. Surprise, surprise, because it's fun. It's not slow, it's fast paced. There's a lot of skill expression, there's a lot of intensity, and people love it. Wow, such a crazy concept, I know.
Now let's get to it. In a year in which we've seen many live service games fail, and a few of them even shut down within the same year that they were released, one now stands as the crowned king of 2024. The list of excuses has grown incredibly long. The players are sick of being ignored, and in many ways, for those players who have been mistreated by other games, studios, and publishers, and subsequently lost interest and hope in those games, Marvel Rivals stands as their new refuge. Right at the end of the year, in the same week as the release of Path of Exile 2's early access, the game climbed to 480,000 concurrent players on Steam, while pulling similar numbers across PlayStation and Xbox. The developer announced in just under 3 days that the game had reached 10 million players. Just over a week later, They would update that number to 20 million players. Regardless of it being free to play or having the Marvel IP, while those are definitely factors here, we've seen plenty.
I mean, look at this. Again, God came down from heaven to give Black Widow the greatest ass of all time, and he did his goddamn darndest to come down from heaven a second time when he decided to give these ties. It's so simple. It's so beautiful. Okay, listen, I'm gonna betray my wife, my 5 kids, my adopted dog, and my 17 divorced wives and illegitimate babies that are in the billions, okay, for these ties. It is what it is, boys. And everyone likes it.
Many of games, especially live service games, fail to garner any level of success. However, Marvel Rivals seems to have something that everyone else is missing. Now, I've been busy with other content and other games. However, whenever I get the chance to, I've been logging in and playing with friends. This game feels incredible to play, and that's something to take note of. That is incredibly important here, especially in this genre. There are very few performance issues. The controls feel fantastic. Every character feels entirely distinct from the other. We aren't beating the accusations here, as the great and wise Mike Ybarra so brazenly pointed out on Twitter and then later was shamed into deleting the comment. Marvel Rivals is essentially Overwatch, but there is a lot more here than just a fresh coat of paint. Marvel Rivals is a live service competitive multiplayer game developed by NetEase, offering players the opportunity to fight in an Overwatch-style game using iconic Marvel superheroes and villains. This game is the quintessential hero shooter, offering a roster of beloved characters including the likes of Spider-Man, Magneto, Storm, Iron Man, Captain America, and more. What really sets Marvel Rivals apart from many of the other live service games is its commitment to staying true to that Marvel brand, offering a staggering 33 heroes at launch, all with abilities and skills that genuinely suit that character, combined with arguably some of the best character designs in all of Marvel. I think that's where Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League really went wrong. They didn't stay on brand. They forced the characters and the setting into a looter-shooter mold for profit purposes. None of the characters really used any of their trademark abilities, and everyone used generic weapons and guns to fuel that looter-shooter formula.
No, this is completely wrong. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League failed because it was atrocious. It was bad at shooting, it was bad at character design, it was bad at traversing the map, it was bad at making missions, it was bad at item customization, it was bad at everything! Literally everything! It didn't fail because Deadshot didn't feel like Deadshot. Like look at this Namur! Does he seem like the hippie Australian from the movies? Hell no. Hawkeye doesn't even look any. No one even recognizes who Hawkeye is. They think it's a new character. And this has nothing to do with recognizability or any of that stuff. It's just fun. And Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League was anything but fun and good. It was tedious, annoying, and poorly developed. And then they put in so much DEI it's spilling over onto their next game, probably, okay? They literally put in Mrs. Trans Mr. Freeze, then they put Deadshot's Black Daughter because fucking reasons, and now that the game is ending, they're actually gonna put in Deathstrike. Which is hilarious, because that's the first non-DEI thing that they're doing. And Joker's a twink. Have fun with that. Obviously. They're not doing that. And surprise, surprise, do normal things, win normal prizes.
Marvel Rivals, you are playing as those heroes, fulfilling roles that they are best suited for and using abilities that make sense for that character. What's really interesting with Marvel Rivals, and this is pretty much across the board, is there is a much higher skill ceiling due to the depth of mechanics between each characters and how they synergize together. Characters in the game have unique team-up abilities, passive bonuses, and activated abilities that can only be unlocked when you're actually pairing them with specific allies. For example, if you use Adam Warlock with Mantis or Star-Lord, well, he'll grant both of them a free revive upon death. This is something that I think really adds a little bit of extra flavor that this genre has been missing. That depth and
Bro, listen, nobody even knows who Adam Warlock is. That's the real truth. Who the hell is Elixir?
flexibility doesn't just end with team-ups, you see it across the individual skills of the heroes themselves. In Overwatch, as an example, Lucio can pump it up, boost speed and healing, and he can knock enemies back, and honestly, that's about it. His closest comparison in Marvel Rivals, Luna Snow, can use precision to heal her allies, deal damage, she can give out shields, she can deal bonus damage with ice shards and slow enemies down, she can empower her abilities to pierce through enemies and allies, and she has an ultimate that can either heal or increase damage. There's a lot more in the way of skill expression and role flexibility across the entire game. Now, what that means in gameplay is that while Marvel Rivals is a bit less accessible than Overwatch is, it has
No, this is completely wrong. This is not less accessible, okay? The problem is, if you don't know, if you don't follow Blizzard, Blizzard is literally looking at all of their player base, and this is around what they expect from you. Yeah, you're a fucking retard to them. They are literally treating all of their players, for years, by the way, this has been happening, and no one seems to call it out. Blizzard, in every game, is treating their player base like an absolute atrocity, some kind of aberration of creation, a literal mouth breather, okay? All of these things. It is insanity. Blizzard is trying to treat their player base like they are mentally deficient at every turn that they get. You know why there's no complexity in Overwatch? Because Blizzard doesn't think that you can press two buttons at the goddamn same time. You know why in every Diablo game the only thing that matters is add a green arrow go up? Because Blizzard doesn't think that you're able to understand numbers. Do you know why World of Warcraft is such a shit show? And relies on add-ons? Because Blizzard doesn't think that you are capable to thinking for yourself. Which is true for the World of Warcraft part, by the way, completely true. The World of Warcraft players that are playing retail on mass retarded. That is actually fact, though. They're kind of right on that one. But everything else, they're not. And Marvel Rivals just gives people options. And what have we been saying for the longest? Again, Marvel Rivals comes and I feel vindicated on so many things that I have been saying forever. People don't care if the mechanics are a little bit complex or there's a lot of versatility. People fucking love versatility. If I have the ability to press X instead of Y because X is better than Y, I'm gonna love that, okay? And if you're stupid enough to not understand which one is better, well, you're still pressing a button and feeling good about things because bright lights, I guess. So there's no problem with that. Marvel Rivals is not complex. You got to be mentally deficient to think that, oh, Marvel Rivals, rival mechanics, really complex. No one's thinking that. None of this is too complex. None of this is too much. They got a fucking video explaining literally everything you want to be explained in game, by the way. My god, look at Path of Exile 2. Now, that is a complexer game, okay? That is a harder game, and it's extremely successful. You know why? Because people like complexity. People like choices. People love being given choices and freedoms. Blizzard is one of the greatest companies to completely not do it. Blizzard is always gonna treat you like you're deficient, and they're never gonna stop. That's why Diablo Immortal exists.
Has a higher barrier to entry for competitive play due to the depth of the character roster and their abilities, but a meta is much harder to pin down in a game like this. There is a lot more in the way of individual skill expression between each character, and by extension, every match feels much more fresh because not every player plays the same hero the same way. I spent most of my time playing as Psylocke. I love this character. I love her in the Marvel Universe. I absolutely love her design in this game, and she's incredibly fun in Marvel Rivals. I think that in many ways, this game's biggest strength isn't about how characters fulfill their roles. It's about how the game provides this layer of player agency that I otherwise don't feel like I get in other games. I'm not a frontliner. I don't really like being in the mix. I like sneaking around, peppering enemies with a bit of damage from the sidelines to support other characters. I ignore the objectives and catch players who freshly respawn that are trying to get back to their team, and then I'll drop in out of nowhere with an ultimate to take out a bunch of enemies and disrupt the point, and then fade back into the shadows. I want everyone to forget that I'm even there until it's too late. Marvel Rivals has the vision to allow players to be able to play their own role rather than the one that the game assigns to them. The minute that this game came out, I started getting Discord notifications. I got messages from friends. Have you heard about the game? Are you going to play the game? Do you know anybody else that's playing the game? And that is incredibly special for a game like this, because that's exactly what the developer wants, and that's exactly what a community wants for this kind of game, because you want more people that are playing it. You want people to go out and try to find more people to play the game with. And it just goes to show just how popular this game has become in such a short amount of time, and I think it's going to continue to grow in popularity because it is a really fun game, and a lot of people are really liking it right now.
Well, it doesn't look like it's going to die anytime soon.
And in a lot of ways, it reminds me of the launch of the original Overwatch. And not just because of all the images people have been sharing online. What is up with people's obsession with wanting to put a big, I'm just not even going to touch that one. It feels like you're eating popcorn. Just one more. Just one more. And the next thing you know, hours have gone by. You've been swapping between these different matches where it's chaotic and people are still trying to learn how to play the game. Everybody's kind of out for themselves. And then you drop into a match that almost feels surgical, where everybody understands their role. They know what they need to do. They understand the maps. And it just feels great to play. And I think if there was one thing that I had to point out and say, like, this is Marvel Rivals' biggest strength, and it's even bigger than the Marvel Rival or Marvel IP itself, and it's just that the game feels really good to play. And that's something that I think a lot of studios have gotten wrong over the last couple of years. There's no hit registration problems. There's no netcode issues. There's no disconnects. I haven't had any problems with FPS or anything like that. The menus are really easy to navigate. The UI is super clean. I don't have any problem with being able to tell allies from enemies in the game. I can't tell you how many times I ran into games like that. And yeah, it just feels really good to play. The animations are solid. The controls feel really good. The character abilities make sense and look really cool, but nothing ever really, obfuscates your vision while you're playing the game, which is really important in a game like this. And that's something that they get right. And I think that goes a really long way with something like this. And one of the other things that I like as well is that they're not going to paywall characters behind battle passes or microtransactions. They're just keeping it cosmetic. It's the best way for you to be able to do it with a game like this. And something that I really like is that you actually have to go looking for the monetization. It's not just in your face. And I'm going to trigger some people when I bring this up. But you know those games that like to hit you with like 4 or 5 different notifications or menus of like different things that they're trying to sell you before you can even get in to play the game in the first place? Marvel Rivals does not have that. Open the game, press play. You're in a match. Simple as that. And by the way, incredibly quick match times. I mean, you hit it and it's just like, match found. There's no delay or anything like that. It's great. I love it.
Unlike Destiny 2. The match times are going to get bigger and bigger.
And, in a lot of ways, when I'm looking at this game, I think that I look at the industry and I see how they've been covering it, talking about its success in the reviews and things like that. And they're really downplaying it. They're oversimplifying it. Well, it's the Marvel IP. Well, it's a free-to-play game. That's the reason why this game is doing so well. And they're really underselling it because I think the truth is a lot more nuanced than that. Marvel Rivals doesn't just replicate what others have done.
The truth, obviously, is that the fact that it's attached to the Marvel IP has literally nothing to do with this. There are so many Marvel games that have failed, and people just don't even know about it. The truth is, pretty much all Marvel games except a couple of have failed. Okay? Because there's no such thing as relying on the Marvel IP to be successful. The Marvel IP is done and dusted.
Right? It also does better what others did wrong. And in that, what they're doing is they're picking up all the players that have been left behind. A really popular discussion that I've seen recently is both games executives and games media that have been writing this line of games being ripoffs of successful games, and that's the major factor as to why those games have been able to find any success, which, yeah, duh, but at the exact same time, there's more to it than that, and that undermines the success of that game. We saw the same thing with Palworld on its release. Its design and gameplay elements were definitely emulating Pokemon. There's no doubt about that, but a mere copy doesn't find 25 million players the way that Palworld did.
Now, to be fair, considering how absolutely atrocious Pokemon are with their games and the quality of their games, to be honest, even a carbon copy of anything that just is not anti-user friendly is going to probably get a couple of million sales. Pokemon is an extremely mismanaged brand.
Or now 20 million players for Marvel Rivals and its inspiration that's taken from Overwatch. Now, I will say I find it incredibly rich to see that Mike Ybarra, ex-Blizzard president turned sports betting CEO, now there's a career change that makes a lot of sense. It tells you a lot about the industry today, now doesn't it? However, he went to Twitter to say, looks like Overwatch Marvel Rivals ships tomorrow, much like Light of Motrium, a clear copy of Horizon Zero Dawn out of China. I mean, even the character name, Widowmaker in Overwatch versus Black Widow in Marvel Rivals, LOL, NetEase, Tencent, all the same. Ironic coming from somebody that used to work for Blizzard, a company that outside of a few hits has built its entire empire off of copying successful games, modernizing them, and then re-releasing them to even more success. I mean, Overwatch isn't even original. Most of its core mechanics and premise were directly taken from Team Fortress 2, but I've seen a lot of people comment on this tweet. However, the one thing that I see that apparently nobody else does is fear and coping. By
the way, do you think Team Fortress 2 could become an extremely successful game if they just come out and say, hey, here's Team Fortress 2, but now every class has like 3 or 4 abilities that you can press? Bro, that would be insane.
How world ever beats the sales of a Pokemon release if Marvel Rivals buries Overwatch, if Light of Motrium outsells Horizon? What does that say about the empires that you've built and the games that you've made? If somebody can simply walk up, take what you've done, make it more fun, more edgy, more sexy, or whatever, and then immediately find success, aren't you the one that's failing to meet your customers' needs? Overwatch was massive when it first released, and it held that popularity for a long time. However, Blizzard, over the years, squandered all of the goodwill that they had created with that game.
Good.
They killed their competitive scene by getting rid of the Overwatch League. They erased the original game when making Overwatch 2, effectively...
Well, to be fair, they killed their competitive scene.
Bricking physical copies just because
no one wanted to watch a competitive Overwatch when your typical 30-minute match had 5 deaths in total. Because of the tank meta and no one dying. It was lame, boring, and no one wanted to watch this.
They wanted to push people into a new microtransaction ecosystem. For many, that was the breaking point. The players that remained behind did so because they actually believed in the promises that Blizzard had made for Overwatch 2. The PvE mode, the added depth, the value that was supposed to come with all of these great sacrifices that they forced upon the player. But in the end, all of that was taken away. All the future plans and promises were canceled. What they were left with was a stagnant live service game that was no better than the original version, that barely even changed, and had only taken their money and their hope. There's no loyalty there anymore. So when we see a new game like Marvel Rivals step out onto the scene, it has a ton of recognizable characters, more depth, and a clear vision of the future. Well, it's easy to see why players would go to play that game. I mean, Blizzard is practically forcing them to at this point. That's why I always thought it was odd when I would see how often games media would talk about why Sony's Concord failed, claiming that it had to do with the fact that the hero shooter genre just wasn't in...
As time passes, playing Iron Man just becomes a person-first choice.
...style anymore. It had nothing to do with that. In fact, I would like to believe that there's probably a growing hunger out there for something to replace Overwatch because there are so few experiences like that in the market right now. There are so few low-commitment, fun games that have great multiplayer experiences with low bars of entry and high ceilings for competitive play. That's why Overwatch succeeded for so long. It stayed true the entire time. Marvel Rivals is finding success because that need is still there in the market. Concord didn't fail because of the genre. It failed because it lacked the one thing that Marvel Rivals has in abundance: character. In an interview with...
No, Concord failed because it was all around abysmal yet again. Again, all of these examples he's giving about games that failed, They failed because they were literal overall shit. Concord was slow and abysmal, and it was woke as F. Okay? Listen. That's it.
With Eurogamer, Thaddeus Sasser, the director of Marvel Rivals, said that Concord didn't bring any unique value, and that's the reason why it failed. Saying that the truth is, I don't think anybody can predict this, or the games industry would be radically different today. There are a lot of games that come out that people are like, it's going to do well, and it flops. Or people are like, it's going to flop, and then it succeeds amazingly. I think it's really hard to tell ahead of time, and you're always worried about that. The trick is you have to have that reason that people want to come play your game. I think that
That's not true at all. We have predicted most flops this year on this channel very easily. And guess what? There's like 50 billion other channels that have done the exact same thing. Typically, predicting a flop is simple. Okay? Because currently in the year of our Lord 2024, flops are visible and announced by the exact same of all garbage that you would expect. And games that don't have that typically succeed. Maybe they're not the greatest, breakouts, but they at least succeed.
Marvel Rivals does that exactly with superheroes. I don't know about you, but when I heard about the game's concept, I was like, oh my god, I want to go be Storm in the game. I want to go be Doctor Strange in the game. I want to be those heroes in the game. That sounds awesome. And of course, my mind immediately leapt to all of the cool possibilities that you could have with that. And that's what I think will pull people in. And I think he's right. Heck, I don't even remember any of the names of the characters from Concord, and I don't think anybody will. Concord really didn't do anything. It had these characters that weren't all that well designed. People didn't really want to play as them or even get to know them, and the developers just assumed that we would want to get to know them. We know that because they had this whole plan and business strategy around delivering seasonal movies for their cast of characters. You either have to hook players with something that they know, or you have to tantalize them with something that is so cool that they need to know more about it. Concord did neither of those things while also looking not really all that entertaining to play. You know, another justification that I'm seeing right now as well is that the reason why Marvel Rivals is doing so well is because it's free to play. And then they make the comparison and say, well, you know, the reason why Concord failed was because it was $40. It would have done better if it was free to play. I don't think that that's as big of an impact as many in games media or even the
Concord was free to play in the beta, and they scored a whopping 6K users. Free to play doesn't matter. Sure, Marvel Rivals would actually do worse if it had a tag of money behind it. But still, if you put a price on something and it's good, people are willing to pay it. It just needs to be good enough. If Marvel Rivals cost money, people would be fine with paying $30 for this, not 70, like Avowed. Avowed's gonna crash and burn just simply because of the fact that it's a AA studio asking for $70. Oh god.
The industry thinks it is. From my perspective, when you make a game free to play, you're essentially just removing the ceiling on what kind of success a game can have, because you can basically reach any audience anywhere at any economic status. But at the end of the day, if a game is good enough or interesting enough, or it's a game that players just genuinely want to play, they will buy that game. I mean, Call of Duty still sells gangbusters. Overwatch wasn't...
They're gonna make Call of Duty free on Game Pass with a desperate attempt at stupidity.
Free to play when it first came out, and it still did really well, and it stayed popular for a really long time. I just don't think it's as big of a factor as people make it out to be. People will buy the games. We've seen that all year round. The most successful games this year were games that were sold, not necessarily games that were free to play. Look at Black Myth Wukong. Look at Baldur's Gate 3 last year. Look at Elden Ring. Look at Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. There are tons of examples of games that sold just fine and really weren't limited by the fact that people had
even Helldivers, by the way,
to pay for them. You know, it's actually crazy is that I can't remember exactly what video this is from. I'd almost guarantee it's from a wake-up call. But I talked about how none of these live service games, none of these publishers are out there creating any goodwill with their audience. All they're doing is creating a scenario in which players are ready to be taken away from them at any given moment, because all they do is take. They just take. It's always a net negative for the players and a net positive for them because they keep making money. And because of that, you're not building any loyalty. And That's why I think a game like this is succeeding, is because in a lot of cases, it's just players that have been burned by other games that have been waiting for something else. And this is the shiny new toy and it looks really fun and cool and it's recognizable. And that's why players are going to play it.
Loyalty will never play a factor again in gaming, I honestly think. Loyalty is done. People are no longer loyal to Blizzard. People are no longer loyal to any brand, pretty much, okay? We recognize the brands, but that is not brand loyalty. Bethesda coming out with a Fallout is me just recognizing that it's going to be another shitty game. Anyone else coming out with Fallout? Exciting. You see, we are at the point where brand loyalty is pretty much replaced with brand precaution? What do we even call this? But it has been happening for some time now. You hear that BioWare is making a new game. You're instantaneously like, yeah, that's something I need to ignore and not buy accidentally. Yep, that's a thing. And Marvel Rivals is not gonna make any brand loyalty. No one is loyal. Most people don't even know who made Marvel Rivals. I actually don't remember at this point even. Tencent? I think it was Tencent. Who the hell is gonna be loyal to damn Tencent of all unholy creatures in this world? No one. No, brand loyalty doesn't exist. Forget about it.
And what's crazy is that any company could build loyalty. They could actually hold on to their player base. I think a really good example of this is Path of Exile and Warframe. Years of customer satisfaction, and those players are stuck to those games. They're not going anywhere. Every single time they do an update.
Wait, he doesn't know what brand loyalty is. People are not loyal to grinding gear games. People like grinding gear games, that is actually true, and they wish the best. I wish them the best because they're awesome. Because they actually make games for the sake of actually being good and whatnot. It's not just all of a money grab. But don't get me wrong, if grinding gear games tells me that I need to implant a microchip to play Path of Exile and it's gonna be fine, I'm gonna tell them to fuck right off in a heartbeat. There's no such thing as loyalty. No one is playing Path of Exile because of loyalty to grinding gear games. People are playing Path of Exile because it's a good game. And the moment the Path of Exile stops being a good game, guess what? People are not gonna be like, oh well, grinding gear games, you have been so good, I'm gonna play your shitty game longer because I have No. It doesn't happen. People are gonna switch to the next thing. This is not loyalty. How the fuck do you also not know what loyalty means? That's just honestly awkward. I did not expect that.
Bam! Player numbers shoot up. Path of Exile just released Path of Exile 2. Game blows up. Over 500,000 players on Steam. Who knows how many players across other platforms? Blizzard could have done that, but they didn't. They instead wanted to milk their players for all they're worth. And while I don't think we're going to see, a massive impact in the player base of Overwatch immediately, we probably will see it over time, because keep in mind, those players are invested over there. They have skins, they've been playing the game, they understand the game, they know the meta, for the people that are in the competitive scene, they're invested for other reasons as well. So you're not going to see a lot of those people move immediately, but I do think you're going to see it slowly happen over time, because one game has a bright future and the other game is just, I don't know.
Good. Also, what people are not talking about? It's Marvel Rivals' choice to not put in roll queue. That's the word I'm looking for. Roll queue is abysmal. You know why? Because it's better to queue up for a game, crash and burn because no one's playing a healer, than it is to play the game the proper way with a healer and everything, and then lose. Because you see, people want excuses. And that's always been the thing. It's the thing with me, it's the thing with you. If something goes bad, the first thing that we want is excuses, not to blame ourselves. That's completely human and normal. Marvel Rivals not having roll queue is genius, because that allows a person to queue up, or lose, because you have effectively 5 squishy assassin type heroes, and then you can queue again because you didn't lose because of your own bad choices. You lost because everyone else was as dumb as you, but you're not dumb. So you just lost because your other team sucked, and it's clearly visible because no one was playing the right role. And it's genius. It's perfect. The casual player is gonna always be able to queue up for one more because a loss will never feel like your own fault. Unlike games like, for example, Dota, League of Legends, and whatnot. Then a loss feels like a loss because you sucked most of the time. But here, it can always be someone else's fault.
I think that Marvel Rivals director is absolutely right when he's talking about creating something to entice players to come over to your games. And for him, he's using the example of the characters, which he's absolutely right in that. I think that, having the IP is huge. It's very recognizable. People want to go play as the Marvel characters. I have my favorite. Most people have their favorite characters. It's fun to play them as those characters. And it's also fun to fill that, player fantasy or that power fantasy of playing as that character and using their powers against other heroes and stuff like that. But one thing that I think that Marvel Rivals has proved that the industry is not going to be very happy with, and it's that players do care about how their characters look. Something that I've taken a while to figure out how to properly voice is that games across the board need to do a better job at inviting
the hottest steak ever, right?
Players in to actually play their games. And making your game beautiful and attractive is the best way to do this. Now, I mean this figuratively and literally. Dark Souls or Elden Ring don't need hot characters to bring you in. It hooks you with the setting, the vistas, the brutality. Path of Exile 2 entices you with the grotesque nature of its world. However, games that the player character is the main focus, narrative-driven RPGs, or in this case, the hero shooter genre, it is incredibly important to make sure that those characters are going to attract the player in to actually want to play as those characters, to learn about them, to be them.
Yeah, imagine that. He's effectively saying DEI characters bad, normal manly men good, womanly women good. The bigger the ass, the better the price. Okay, it is what it is, boys. In any case, 10 out of 10. That was legendary drops. Have a nice day. Bye.